I'm going to actually start this over again just because it's a good, like, as soon as it pops, then I'll start. Helps me. It's like a flag drop in a race.
Okay, I'm ready.
Oh, you don't want to finish your thought?
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
I don't want to keep Kelvin.
So,
Don't worry about me.
because we could sort of record this section as like, I don't know, right as the intro music is about to go.
Okay.
This is kind of playing, and then that happens, and we say, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
there we are. So
Awesome.
there we are. Well, Sharon, thank you very much for coming on to A Name for Yourself podcast. Obviously, we know each other well. We worked on some projects together. You are the city administrator for the city of Marshall. How long have you been in that role?
I've been here since November of 2017.
Wow. It seems like that went really fast. Does it feel like it went fast?
It's gone very fast. There's
Yeah.
always been something every year.
Yeah.
There's been some project or weather-related event or, and just meeting the community. And when you're having fun, time flies.
Yeah, absolutely. And before that, you were an administrator, but for a county,
Correct.
correct?
Yep, Pipestone County for 13 years.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I kind of bounced around a lot. I did public health and safety consulting. And
Yeah.
would
Would you say your career has mostly been in like public service, public administration?
Yeah, it's been mostly government, except for a 5-year stint where I worked for a private company doing health and safety consulting. So
That was early on.
that was about mid-career.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, and I've enjoyed every job, every level.
Yeah.
It's building blocks to where you are, and so yeah, it's been great experience. I know I talked to some early graduates or people, just starting their career, and I'm impressed by their ambition. They like to kind of look at the top, and I didn't start that way. I kind of did have to kind of work my way up, and I did it in a zigzag motion, so I bounced around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you just learn a lot. You have different experiences, and it helps. It just helps your foundation for where you're at today. So.
Well, that is exactly what we're banking on. So as I'm making us a cup of coffee to share and enjoy, I mean, kind of the premise of the podcast and why I thought you'd be a great guest for this episode is for someone that's in high school, someone that's in college, on the front end of their career, there's a lot of big decisions, a lot of big hopes and dreams in front of them. I know even at my age, I'm 30, I still a lot of times feel like a kid who doesn't know what he's doing, where he's going, not really sure how to make their next right decision sometimes. So I'm hoping to lean on some of your experience, kind of pick your brain on your path, how you've gotten where you are, and as you reflect on that, any insights we can sort of draw from it. So I know I'm kind of putting this on the spot, but to the best of your ability, could you kind of lay out briefly, how did you get here? Because I know you graduated with an environmental science degree, correct?
Yes.
So explain environmental science degree to city administrator of Marshall years later.
There's a lot of luck involved, and I think they'll say that for people who get to management or whatever it may be. So that's part of it. Opportunity. Mm-hmm. I had opportunity, and I do consider myself lucky. Either, there wasn't interest in jobs by other people, so the field was limited. And I also think, just getting along with people is so key. And I think I have a really good ability to do that. So those two things really, really help me. But yeah, I've got an environmental science degree, so I should be working in a lab somewhere and, in research and testing and things like that. And I've always liked science. I was interested in it. I liked the outdoors, and I put the two together and said I should go into environmental science. And I actually did work in a lab for a while. I was a lab rat as my first entry level job, and it was great experience. And that was my first job out of college. But even in that position, entry level, I did different leadership things. I mean, I joined, the company had a Toastmasters club.
Is that where they drop the pennies in the bucket whenever you say
I think they do. I couldn't remember the penny thing, but yes, if you said you got dinged for it, so to speak. But it was a good, little things like that just kind of build relationships and get you connected, and that was a good leadership thing. And we did some other things in that company. And then I kind of mentioned I laterally zigzagged around. I did public health for a few years. And then I had an opportunity to get away from government. So I started out not in government. Then I went to government for public health, which is a county organization. But wanted to see where I could go privately. And I worked for a health and safety consulting company. And each time, you never want to go backwards, of course. So there's salary enhancements, and you just gain different knowledge. So there, it was working mostly with school districts, some private companies, a few universities too. And I had a client list, and it was mostly Southwest Minnesota, but then was given an opportunity to manage the state, which again built that building block of foundation to where I am. So got more into management of people and projects, and management of people is it's a real key factor in moving up, and it's hard to get to that point because when you first start, it's pretty atypical to start an entry level job and you're going to be supervising an employee.
Right. Yep.
But when you move up, they're going to want you to look for supervision. So, for me, it was I would volunteer, and maybe I would be a supervisor of volunteers, or if I was in a service organization, it would be, management of a project or initiative. So there's different ways you can get key experiences and what an employer might want to look for as you go on. But getting involved, I know service organizations now are really on the decline. Rotary, Kiwanis, churches, different groups. People aren't participating as much, but I think they're so important. It gets you to meet people, know people. You pick up things. Yeah. You build your reputation. And, a statement, your reputation precedes you. It could be bad or it could be good. And even in the community of Marshall, I haven't met everyone I want to meet. But if someone can drop good feelings about me or good statements about me and share them, that really helps me succeed too. It's all about support. Yeah. So I probably didn't take this from one point to another, but I worked for public health and safety, and then I got the job at Pipestone County being county administrator. And that probably was more of, I'm sure I interviewed great, but there wasn't probably a lot of competition, in Southwest Minnesota, which is a great opportunity for people, for, college students. Yeah.
We should talk about that too, because I want to circle back to that point. Yeah. For sure.
That, there's sometimes you don't have a lot of competition because it's Southwest Minnesota and it's, people want to go to larger metropolitan areas, but this is a really good place to raise your family, and you can have a lot of opportunity here. So Pipestone County, 13 years, and then this community came up with a job, and I wanted more challenge at the time.
Did you get what you wanted? Did you
get
what you asked for?
I did. And I get asked once in a while, do you still like your job as city administrator? And it is a little bit too busy at times, and sometimes it's stressful, but I actually put stress on myself when I was bored. So, I don't like to be bored either. So I'm learning lots of good things and meeting really good people. Yeah. So it's good.
Like me?
Yes. Okay, like you. Good. So, yeah.
Hope I would fit into that category. Yeah. But, so one of the questions I had, or what I heard in sort of your story was that a lot of opportunity was bred through the exercise of like raising your hand.
Yes.
And that reminded me of Seth Godin. Is that a familiar name?
Yeah.
So he wrote a book called Lynchpin a few years ago. And this probably looks really awkward on camera, but whatever you got to do.
You're actually doing a great job
to get the
pouring that.
coffee. Thank you.
You didn't
I was a
spill.
barista back in high school, and it was one of my favorite jobs.
Yeah.
In that book, Lynchpin, he talks about, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, inside of a large corporation, the safest thing you could do is put your head down and get your work done. And that is now the most dangerous thing you can do inside of an organization, because getting your work done is just not good enough.
Right.
You really have to be the person that makes themselves irreplaceable through, taking on different opportunities, volunteering, kind of going above and beyond.
Yeah, and the city of Marshall has 100 employees, so it's a small organization. So I maybe shouldn't be outspoken about that topic, but if you have someone who isn't willing to raise their hand, you do really move on, and you focus on employees who said, I can take on more. Mm-hmm. And I've had employees say that to me. I'm willing to take on more.
Yeah,
they're the stars.
Yeah,
and that's who you want to put your energy towards. Mm-hmm.
So would you say county administration and city administration, lots of crossover or very different?
There's lots of crossover in terms of oversight by the state of Minnesota, because we are a local unit of government. So they have a lot of influence on what we do. You have elected officials that are your bosses, and they want to respond to their constituents and do a good job for them. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the same.
Sure.
The city government is a little bit different in terms people really love their cities, and they're more impacted by the services we do on a day-to-day basis than you would in a county.
Yeah.
County does a lot of human services work, and you may not ever come into play with a human services worker, depending on your income level or your current situation. Sure. And, law enforcement, things like that, you just may not do transactions with them. But at the city, you're at the forefront. I mean, you're turning on your faucet, it's city services. You're flushing the toilet, city services. It's the streets you drive on. It's just more frontline for the cities.
So in that transition from the county to the city, maybe there's parallels in this area too, but where would you say in your day-to-day, and I don't mean every single day, but let's say if you were to sort of broad brush, where is it that you kind of draw purpose from? Or that really gives you kind of meaning of, this is where I find value and this is why I like to do it?
I'm always inspired by people. And last night I had a conversation with a parent I'd never met before, had interest in learning more about our aquatic center, which we're looking at redoing. She just wanted to know why we were doing something. She invited me to her home because she's a stay-at-home mom with 3 little kids. And I said, sure, I'll come to your home and just kind of talk about the project. And so I'm very inspired by people. There's a lot of, again, people who have interest in what we do, or there's talented people like yourself, like your talent actually really does inspire me. And you want to do good when others want to see you do good, or are kind of looking to you to do good. So that to me is really the purpose. And this sounds kind of shallow, but I think it's the basic human relationship, is that you want to have a little validation, and people give you that sometimes. And you also want reciprocation of what you do. So if you do good, you might get in return good comments or support. And so that's important too. I do it to get something back, which, it helps me kind of carry on and do more things.
Yeah.
So
isn't it funny that at times, different cultures have referred to that as like karma?
Yeah.
But it's really the idea of like, oh, if you do good things may happen. If you're a bad person, you do bad things, it's probably not going to be very profitable for you. Yeah. Seems Seems kind of basic,
Yeah.
logical. So let me ask you this. Do you think people have a calling? Do you think everyone has an individual calling?
That's a really tough question.
Yeah. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. So don't feel pressure that I'm going to disagree with you where I don't know what I think about it.
I got to think about that one. Mm-hmm. I don't know if early on, if people think about what they do and what they're trying to achieve as a calling. Like they don't kind of see it that way. I think they want to get to a certain position.
Yeah.
Or a certain salary, and they may not actually think about the work itself, which I think is just as important. You got to really like what you do. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful. Mm-hmm. So you can make all the money in the world, but if you don't like what you're doing, it's So I think finding what you like to do, and if you're good at it too, helps because the job is easier if you're good at it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think those two things kind of help drive your calling, so to speak. And again, it gets back to you want to do more. The more you kind of please people and do something for them, you want to do more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in the millennial generation and the generation under that, I think that's Gen Z.
I don't know what it is.
Is that Gen Z? Yeah, that's Gen Z. It's off-camera help. That's probably, there's more and more priority, I think, of like the idea of like doing great things. It's not well defined, but it's just that definition, doing great things. And you employ quite a few in those generations. Is that something you observe in their, is there a deliberateness around going further faster?
I think I'm still trying to figure them out, actually.
Yeah.
When I first started in kind of moving up or getting in different jobs, I was always the youngest. I mean, even in Pipestone County when I was the administrator, I was 35 when I started. Mm-hmm. And it was a lot younger than the people I supervised even. Now it is flipped. I've got, some of my employees, they can be my kids. And I'm okay with that. They inspire me and I get energy for them. So I have no insecurities about them whatsoever. I think it's the employees who really want to strive to do more, take on more. They are the ones that I think are going to succeed. And I think I forgot the beginning of your question, actually. I forgot where I was going with this.
Well, this
might be an edit.
That was actually still a really good answer, believe it or not.
Okay.
So it was just do you observe that in your staff that they have a different kind of, just have a different kind of tick on them, or maybe just like a chip on their shoulder that they feel like their success should come a lot faster and should look a lot bigger than, we're in the Midwest. Like, what if we're gonna broad brush what we do? We put our pants on in the morning. Yeah. We go to work. We don't brag about it. That's what the Midwest is known for. I don't know that I observe that as much in millennials, which I would fit in that category, and Gen Z. There is kind of this desire to, I feel like it should be happening already. I feel like I should be finding my place and achieving this certain standard of success, good or bad.
Yeah, I do see that a little bit. And, again, we're a smaller organization. And there's quite a few employees I'd like to move up. But there's just not room. And I kind of do feel bad because, they might be at a certain position where they can't move up. But you have to look out for yourself. And two, in addition to working for the organization. And depending on the circumstances, if they've, done really good work for the organization and they've been there for a period of time. I'm a highly supportive employees that want to better themselves. And if it means leaving the organization, I'll support them. Yeah. I may critique where they're going to go. Yeah. I mean, I've had some employees that were applying at certain organizations. And I said, no, you can do better than that. Yeah. And I said, if you are going to move on, you should move to something like this. Right. So, but otherwise, I'm very supportive of people who want to better themselves, and it sometimes means moving on. Yeah. It just does.
Yeah.
So,
Because you're in a tough spot with, you have all these employees, and if they're doing an excellent job,
mm-hmm.
you would love to bless them generously with something.
Yep.
But it's not like it's your organization. You are
Right.
stewarding the resources of a city. So, it's
Right.
not like private company where you can,
Right.
create a new position and double a salary. You just don't have that kind
Yeah.
of leave beginner scrutiny.
We were talking this morning in a staff meeting about salaries and benefits, because we're actually doing a salary study, and I think this is still probably popular in the public sector, but pay for performance.
Yeah.
So they implemented that in government probably, I don't know, within the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was popular, but it was politically popular because the elected officials could advocate that, look, we got pay for performance. We're getting the most of our employees, and if they're not, they don't get paid as much.
Sure.
And I always said, because I did work for a private organization where I did get a salary bump for doing really well,
Yeah.
that the pay for performance in government it's not big enough.
Right.
It's still, you're still kind of putting everybody in a little box and kind of giving them all a little something.
Mm-hmm.
To really reward employees, you've got to, just like you said,
Yeah.
do a salary bump,
Surprise and delight.
give them a promotion and a job, and then we
Yeah.
can do a little bit of the job promotion, but salary we're kind of restricted.
Yeah.
We got too many regulations on what we can pay and not pay, but I think we got to find different ways to reward employees, and sometimes it is giving them projects or different tasks and things like that. So
Yeah. Interesting. I love the city of Marshall and love collaborating with the city of Marshall. I'm also just always a tough critic on bureaucracy.
yes,
And I don't really understand a lot of it either. And so sometimes it's just fun just to learn and kind of peel back the curtain a little bit and see.
you know what I always say to people, because we do get complaints sometimes, is, and I mean this, I don't like the way the city operates everything all the time either.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we can do better.
Mm-hmm.
And so when somebody brings something up, I agree with them.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we should do better. And the analogy for government that I use is we're like the Titanic, and we're so big and it's so bulky, and it's slow, can be slow, and it just takes a while to turn that ship.
Yeah.
And it takes us longer
Yeah.
to turn the ship. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know if we'll ever get away with it, because there's new programs and new requirements, and we get bogged down. Government regulates government. So state, federal kind of tell us what to do, and it's not getting any less, and that bogs us down a little bit.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And you're kind of a person who you enjoy. I don't know if I would say, if I know you well enough to say that you enjoy new, but you certainly like taking on projects that make the city better, and like the rebranding and the aquatic center, and just improving upon things. That there's always some movement there. Is that tough for you to balance personally? What kind of drives you with just maybe how slow systems move sometimes?
Yeah. I probably have a short attention span, because I do like new things and doing new work. And when it's older work, aren't as good as I used to be on it, because it's kind of older work. But yeah, what was the question again? No, I forgot the question again.
How do you balance the wanting to do new projects like the rebranding and the aquatic center with the fact that it sometimes doesn't happen as fast as you want, or there's things out of your control? Maybe they're logistically in your control, but it's people, and people are always unpredictable and have their own priorities. And is that tough for you personally operating in that space sometimes?
I think the longer you do this and the older you get, you are more willing to accept alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with an elected council, that you never know where they're going to go.
Yeah.
I always say, anytime you cross the threshold of council chambers, they could make one decision or they can make another.
Sure.
Which, for some of you who watch those meetings, I can't believe some people watch those
Every
meetings.
2 weeks
but they
I'm
do.
tuning in. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to see
Yeah.
how they will vote. But So now I lost my train of thought again.
That's all right.
Give me the question again. This is really good coffee too, by the way.
Thank you. It's Folgers, but it's like the best Folgers you can get.
I bought Folgers the other day too, and I know this is editing here.
No, we're gonna leave it. It's okay.
And it was awesome. It was really good coffee.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Surprising.
What was the question again?
And we can skip past it, but it was just what I've observed in you sometimes is driving. Oh, yeah. You like to drive things, but obviously sometimes it just things get in the way.
Yeah, and you just kind of are more willing to accept alternatives. It doesn't have to be one way. There could be another way. And sometimes staff are wrong. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'm wrong. But, these elected officials do make good decisions. Mm-hmm. And it isn't always what the staff recommends. Where they're not a rubber stamp. And so, you're just more willing and open to accept alternatives. That helps. Yeah. And I'm that way in my home life, too, I think. Although I don't know, my husband would say, you are. But I am, actually. I'm more relaxed there, too. Yeah.
So if there were high schooler, college student, or young professional watching, maybe someone that actually already works at the city, and they have aspirations of achieving success in public service, I'm going to have two-part question. On the first side, what advice would you give specific to this area, which public service is different? It's not private industry. So if you're going to be successful in this area, this is kind of a at least one or a few need to knows. And then the second question I'll ask is about warnings in this area as well.
Okay. So you want me to answer the first one?
If you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, go for it.
I think especially in government, but maybe anywhere, I would say even privately, is building relationships. And I have a 7-member council, so they are my bosses. But my true boss is the 13,680 residents, and they're their bosses. They boss the council. Mm-hmm. So if you can get support of the community, they really drive your success, and they also protect you a little bit too. If you have great community support, the council's going to support you too, because they know they don't want to go against their own constituents. So building really good relationships, getting along with people and relating to them, and sometimes it's validating them. I will talk to some of the community members I think have been, oh, that's how that person is, or you shouldn't listen to them. But I talk to everybody. Yeah. And I think everybody, there's always something that they say that has some validity. And so I think, just getting great people skills, building human relationships with as many people as you can. Mm-hmm. In a private sector, they're going to know that too, because they're going to hear somebody else is going to say to the boss, I talked to so-and-so, and, oh, that was, really great conversation. Or so that really helps.
That reminds me of something someone said on a previous episode we recorded on, just a small comment he made of every business is in the people business. Yep. It's just the idea of relationships. And
I actually, before I came here, I had a lunch break with a library employee who I had never met before. So I introduced myself, and she is from Brooklyn Park, and I think she went to school here, and she is living in Marshall. She just likes the area. This is the community she wants to live in, and so I think we both made good impressions on each other. Mm-hmm. And when we see each other again, we now have a relationship, and we can kind of build off of that. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. And then warnings in this territory.
Never get in front of, out ahead of your council, your boss, whether it's private sector. So I do I think I do anyway, maybe it could be better at times, a lot of updating communication. It could be a weekly update in an email. Mm-hmm. It could be, phone calls, things like that. I just really kind of let them know what's going on and what I'm working on. And in some ways, like I share my calendar too on a weekly basis, it seems kind of a micromanagement type thing, like
Yeah.
you're encouraging it. But what it does is it just gives them kind of a foundation. Oh, I kind of know what she's working on. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
And what that does is it kind of backs them away a little bit, which makes it sound like I'm trying to keep them at bay. That's not true. But if you can have a boss that gives you the freedom and has the confidence in you, your productivity level just goes way up. You can just do more. So I think communicating, telling them what you're working on and what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complicated. I did that at entry level jobs. I always just kind of kept my boss informed,
Yeah.
and it really helped.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I want to circle back to the idea of opportunity in this area. I think it fits this podcast, one, because of your position. So obviously you are passionate and care about people seeing this as a profitable place to live. But two, there are just a lot of young people that are deciding where they're going to put their roots down. And I saw, and we'll be able to see it on camera, but the canvas prints behind you paint a good picture of it, just those tree stumps. But I saw a picture of two trees years ago. That's always stuck with me. And they were side by side, but they came from different forests. And one was a densely populated forest. And so it was this skinny little tree. And the other didn't really have any other trees in the shot. And it was just this big fat tree. And below it, it said 2 17-year-old trees. And that image stuck with me because I realized when you have more space around you, the opportunity to grow and to taste new things and to try new things, it's ripe. You can get fat with experience and you can grow and you can kind of seize a lot of things. Growing up kind of in the Twin Cities area, not that you need to strive to like be somebody, but you can easily just kind of get lost in there's just a lot going on. You never really get a lot of traction to do anything, to create anything. It's hard to make connections because everyone meets everyone every day. And, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of connections happening. So that's always stuck with me. That's kind of my thoughts on opportunity in the area. Curious what your thoughts are, how you'd respond to that.
That's kind of I don't know, this is tougher than I thought to answer that. I think obviously there's a need for all different types of positions and there's different jobs out there and obvious and also willing employers. We've got some really great employers too.
Yeah, we do.
And I remember talking to a graduate from high school last year, and she's going into nursing, and she told me, and she kind of sheepish. She was a little hesitant to tell me this, but her intentions was to move back to the area. I don't know if she kind of felt like embarrassed or something, but I said, no, I want you to move back to this area. We need you.
Yeah.
To be in this area. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
When you have people who want to commit to the area. But there's just a lot of great reasons to be in this area. You have willing, great employers. The opportunities there's lots of job openings. I think at one time there was a survey out there. They did a study. The city of Marshall is one of the shortest commute times from getting to point A to point B, which is maybe understandably because of our population, but there's some benefits to that, and we're a safe community, and these we've got Sioux Falls next to us that's growing. There's just no comparison to that community right now in the upper Midwest, maybe even the United States. Yeah. And they're going to have a lot of growing pains.
Right.
And I just think we've got it right out here. You can see the horizon at night. You can't see that in Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's too many lights. Yeah. Too many buildings. So.
One of the things that's really cool about just that this time to be alive, especially for a young person just starting out, is depending on the job that you're going to do. A lot of times you can live anywhere, and you can be a part of lots of different communities. I think of myself. I mean, I have connections and friends that operate in that North Loop, Minneapolis area. You want to hang out with the hipsters and like, ride electric bikes and all that. Like you can hang with that crew and you can still live here. And
Yeah.
obviously I have another job where I work in Sioux Falls. And so I go there from time to time. And that there's a real freedom in being able to still live wherever you want to live.
Right.
Because the opportunities around here, just to kind of spread your arms out and, own a piece of land and kind of experience a different level of freedom. People always kind of critique it like there's nothing to do. And I saw a good person kind of expound upon that, saying what you really mean by that is like there's not as many places to shop. There's a lot to do. You can do almost anything because you can go somewhere where no one else is, and you can shoot stuff or blow stuff up or go down a river or all that. There's just very little in your way to doing whatever you want, but there is less places to shop. So if that's what you're looking for, that's a distinction. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think COVID has obviously kind of, and we'll see what happens with the homework, but you can work anywhere, and it's proven. COVID proven that we can do that. We've had some people move back, out of the metro area because they can now.
Yeah.
So that's a benefit to us. We also still, I'm still a little bit of a traditionalist with the office. I think people ultimately are more efficient in the office.
Yeah.
It's my view. But likely we're going to see kind of hybrid.
Yeah.
You're just like you're sometimes in the office and sometimes you're not. You're in different locations. So
yeah.
But yeah, the freedom to do what you want to do and the space to do it, and there's so many really good factors here in Marshall.
Yeah.
So.
One more topic I want to cover, and it has to do with the name of the podcast and kind of give you some background on it and get your reaction to it. So obviously this is called a Name for Yourself podcast. Where the name actually comes from, you are well aware that I'm a man of faith and kind of driven by that. And so in Genesis chapter 11, there's the story of the Tower of Babel. And it's, all the nations are together in one place on the earth, and the words they say is, let us build this that we can make a name for ourselves. And God doesn't say that he had a problem with that, but that's all you really know, and he always scatters the people, all that. Someone else pointed out, it was a guest in the podcast, that in the book of Proverbs, there's a proverb that says something like, a good name is more profitable than riches. So there's kind of two ways that it cuts in scripture of making a name for yourself. And so I'm really curious in the area of how do we balance motivation, passion, big ambitions with making sure it's not selfish ambition, that we're not in it for ourselves or that we're doing it the wrong way, because sometimes it can just be hard to tell. You're thinking, well, I want good things for myself. Why is that a bad thing? So how have maybe you evaluated those things, either personally, or how do you look at maybe other people and observe in them maybe a right or wrong motive and how you see they carry themselves?
Yeah. The Tower of Babel was actually just in the gospel about a few weeks ago. So yeah, my church. So
awesome.
Yeah, it was, that's a good one. And it is about not being selfish. And that's why God confused them with different languages, and to make them think about this and not think about themselves, but others. And so again, I think it's the basic foundation of, you want to be liked. And that's just a natural human trait. You want to be liked. Talk leads to like leads to trust, I always say. And that trust, you can start building that relationship. So to kind of, get away from the selfishness, you're not going to be liked and have the opportunity to build a relationship if you're just thinking of yourself. You do
Right.
have to. You do have to be giving to others, and as you know, I am quick to kind of say what I don't know. At least we did that with
Yeah.
branding. I don't
Yep.
know how many times I said, I don't know this.
Yeah.
You need to help me. I don't know it. And maybe early on when you start your career, you don't want to say that because you're seen as weak.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty comfortable saying it,
Yeah.
that I don't know this or that.
Yeah.
And it does break down the barrier and maybe makes you vulnerable. And that vulnerability, other people can relate to that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's just kind of one way of maybe not being selfish. And
Yeah. That's a good point
So-
because that's something I just put this together, but I have always admired that about you because you are quick to acknowledge when you don't know something.
yeah,
On the other side of things, Calvin, one of the things I admire most about him is when I give him things to do, he never tells me he doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Because he just figures it out.
yeah,
I guess I never even realized that you appreciate that differently depending on if you think the person is being humble or just being lazy. Because
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes in early on in your career, it can be used as an excuse to not wanting to figure
Yeah.
it out. It's good to be humble too early in your career, but for the most part, you're
Yeah.
probably there to solve
and
problems.
most of the time now anyway, we're working on things as a team. You have other staff, you have other people helping you. So, and you do want people who are really good at what they're good at to really kind of provide the motivation and the expertise to make it happen. So, yeah, where I'm at, I don't look at it as being lazy. It's just you're part of a team and you wanna express where you're at a certain level
yeah.
and you're still learning though. I mean, I'm learning stuff all the time. I do a lot of reading.
Yeah.
Just we've got a diversity, equity, inclusion commission, and I actually always say to them too. I'm going to say something at some point that's probably going to offend you, and it's because I don't know. I'm not aware of every diversity topic and what I should say or not say. I don't know
Right.
that at this point.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good about just kind of saying, we get it, and so when we know more, we'll do better.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at.
Is that Maya Angelou?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, last thing. I know I said last thing already, and I'm just going to last you because I want to be respectful of your time. But as you look to your future, if you short term, long term, what's on the horizon? Whether it's goals personally, professionally, citywide, goals. What do you see?
Yeah, I think especially for a community like Marshall, and probably this job too, it takes time, and I think to really make an impact on the community, you got to be here for some time. And I want to be here for a bit of time yet because
Yeah.
there's things to be done, and I owe it to the community because they've given me really great support. So I do want to commit more time here.
That's awesome.
And I'm at the stage of the career where I want to do that too. When you're younger, you do bounce around more. I mean,
Yeah.
I was changing jobs every 3 to 5 years when I was in my 20s. I mean, that's just what you do because
Yeah.
you want to move up. So I want to commit myself to Marshall for more years, and then we'll see. I mean, I may retire here. I don't know. I at one point, I could see myself kind of be a freelance administrator too, when there's retirements or resignations kind of filling in
Yeah.
for a community or a county. I could do that too. But right now I really just want to focus in on Marshall and like I said, who knows, maybe I'll retire here too because
Yeah.
it's been a really good community for me.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I go back to a while ago, I heard someone say, a lot of people want to bounce around or roll around, go to this community, that community, and how healthy it is to plant roots.
Yeah.
Living things have roots. If you don't have roots, you are a tumbleweed.
Yes.
You're dead. So I think that's a
Well, and I think
good
too,
perspective.
if you're in an upper management job, it's easy the first 3 years,
Sure.
4. It's easy because
Yeah.
your first year you can say, "Well, I didn't do that. It was the other person."
Yeah.
So my first year was really easy because I just say, "I never did that. Somebody else did it."
Yeah.
And then you just are learning, and so you can kind of use that as a crutch. But as you go on, you're then responsible for what happens, and you are the one who did this or did that.
Yeah.
And then you may have to defend or you may have to explain. So it gets harder. But it's the hard stuff that makes us better. If everything was easy, you would never learn. I mean, especially for people who have younger kids like yourself. I mean, I know my husband and I had a discussion once. We didn't want my son to make a mistake on something. I said, if he never makes a mistake, he's never going to learn. When you make mistakes, you learn. So I think part of longevity is along the way you're going to learn some things, and part of it's making mistakes, and you can't do that if you're here for a short time.
Yeah.
So thanks for the coffee.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I
This
love
has been
afternoon coffee
awesome.
too.
Yeah.
So
It's a nice cup of Joe. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out, imparting some wisdom onto myself and anyone else that is able to watch this.
Yeah.
Definitely appreciate it. We'd love to have you back sometime.
thanks, Max.